She was young, Apache, and hunted. He was old, lonely, and brave enough to love her against the world.
Subscribe to Wild Sky Stories. Turn on the bell icon so you can do not miss any new video.
The Arizona sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and deep crimson when Samuel Redford first saw her. He was 52 years old, his hair more silver than the brown it had once been, and he had buried his wife of 23 years just 18 months ago. Life on the ranch had become quiet, lonely, and filled with nothing but the sound of cattle and wind. She was kneeling beside the creek that ran through the eastern edge of his property, her long black hair falling like a dark river down her back. Her buckskin dress was torn, and even from a distance, Samuel could see the exhaustion in her posture. When she heard his horse approaching, she turned, and he saw the fear flash across her beautiful face before she stood tall, ready to run or fight. Samuel held up both hands, showing he meant no harm. He dismounted slowly, his bones protesting the movement like they always did these days. Up close, he could see she was young, perhaps 25 summers, with eyes the color of rich earth and a face that held both strength and sorrow. "I am not going to hurt you," he said softly. She watched him with the wariness of a wounded deer, her chest rising and falling rapidly. There was a deep cut on her arm, and her lips were cracked from thirst. "You are hurt," Samuel continued, gesturing toward the creek. "Drink, rest, no one will harm you on my land." For a long moment she did not move. Then something in his eyes must have spoken to her, because she slowly relaxed her defensive stance. She knelt again and drank deeply from the cool water. Samuel learned her name was Ayita, which meant first to dance. She had been cast out from her tribe after refusing to marry a warrior she did not love. She had wandered for days, surviving on what little the land provided. When she finished telling her story in broken English, mixed with Apache words Samuel somehow understood through gesture and expression, night had fully fallen. He made a choice that would change everything. "Come to the ranch," he said. "There is food, a warm place to sleep. You can decide what to do when you are stronger. Do you want Samuel to take Ayita to the main house, or offer her the small cabin near the barn?" Samuel chose the main house. He would not treat her like a servant or hide her away like something shameful. If she was going to be under his protection, she would be treated with dignity. That first night, Ayita slept in the room that had once belonged to Samuel's daughter Margaret, before she married and moved to California. Samuel sat in his chair by the cold fireplace, unable to sleep, wondering what had possessed him to bring a young Apache woman into his home, when he knew the kind of hatred that lived in the hearts of the townspeople. But when he closed his eyes, he saw her face, and something long dead inside him began to stir back to life. The days turned into weeks. Ayita's wound healed, and with each passing sunrise, she grew stronger. Samuel found himself looking forward to mornings in a way he had not since Clara died. Ayita would be in the kitchen, learning to cook on the iron stove, laughing at her mistakes, her laughter like water over stones. She would walk with him to check the cattle, and though she knew nothing about ranching, she listened with genuine interest as he explained the work. She also taught him things. She showed him which plants could heal and which could harm. She told him stories of her people, tales of spirits and ancestors in a world that existed alongside the one he could see. At night they would sit on the porch together, watching the stars, and Samuel began to realize that his heart, which he had thought permanently broken, was healing in her presence. One evening, as the summer heat began to fade into the coolness of autumn, Ayita turned to him with those deep brown eyes. "Why do you let me stay?" she asked. "Your people, they will not understand." Samuel looked at her for a long moment. The moonlight made her skin glow, and he thought she was the most beautiful thing he had seen in all his years. "Because you needed help," he said, "and because I was lonely, and because being near you makes me feel alive again." She reached out and touched his weathered hand. You are a good man, Samuel Redford. Do you want Samuel to confess his growing feelings now or wait for the conflict that is coming? Samuel chose to wait. He was not a man who spoke hastily, and he was still sorting through the storm of emotions that Ayita had awakened in him. He was old enough to be her father. The town would never accept them. And yet, when she touched his hand, he felt like a young man again, full of hope and possibility. The conflict came sooner than expected. It was a Sunday morning when the Reverend Thomas Crawford came riding up the dirt road with 3 other men from town. Samuel recognized them all: Jim Peters, who owned the general store, Dr. Harold White, who had treated Clara during her final illness, and Marcus Cole, the town banker. They were respected men, pillars of the community, and their faces were hard with disapproval. Samuel stepped onto the porch, placing himself between them and the house where Ayita watched from behind the curtained window. "Good morning, Reverend," Samuel said, his voice calm but his hand resting near the rifle that leaned against the porch railing.
"Samuel," the Reverend began, his voice carrying the weight of false concern.
"We have heard troubling things. There is talk that you have taken an Apache woman into your home." "Not talk," Samuel replied. "Truth. Her name is Ayita, and she is my guest." Jim Peters spit on the ground. "Guest? Samuel, have you lost your mind? These are the people who killed settlers. They are savages." "She is a woman who was hungry and hurt," Samuel said, his voice growing harder. "She has done no harm to anyone." Dr. White shook his head sadly. "Think of Clara, Samuel. Think of what she would say if she could see you now, keeping company with one of them." The words hit Samuel like a physical blow. He gripped the porch railing, his knuckles going white. But then he thought of Clara, really thought of her, and he remembered the kind of woman she had been. She had taken food to the poor families outside of town, no matter their background. She had taught him that every soul had value. Clara, Samuel said slowly, would have opened that door herself. She would have cleaned Ayita's wounds and given her water and made her feel welcome. "Do not use my wife's memory to justify your hatred." "Do you want Samuel to send the men away peacefully or escalate the confrontation?" Samuel chose to stand firm but peaceful. Violence would only prove their point about savagery, and he refused to sink to that level. "Gentlemen," he said, "I thank you for your concern. But who I keep in my home is my business. Now, I have work to do." The Reverend's face reddened. "If you continue down this path, Samuel, there will be consequences. You will be unwelcome at church. Your credit at the store will be revoked. You will be a pariah. Then I will be a pariah," Samuel said. "Now get off my land." The men exchanged glances before tea, earning their horses and riding away. But Samuel knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning. That night Ayita came to him as he sat in his chair staring into the fire. She knelt before him, her eyes filled with tears. "I should go," she said. "I bring you only trouble." Samuel looked at her, at this woman who had appeared in his life like an answer to a prayer he had not known he was praying. He cupped her face in his rough, calloused hands. "Listen to me," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I have lived more than half a century. I have known joy and sorrow. I have built this ranch with my own 2 hands. I have loved and lost. And in all that time, I have never felt what I feel when I look at you." Tears slipped down Ayita's cheeks. "Samuel, I am young. I am Apache. Your world will never accept me. Then we will build our own world," he said. "Right here, on this land, you and me. Do you want Ayita to accept his love now or struggle with her own feelings first?" Ayita struggled. She pulled away from him, wrapping her arms around herself as she walked to the window. "In my tribe," she said quietly, "love between old and young is not strange. Wisdom is valued, experience is honored. But I have seen how your people look at me, like I am less than the cattle in your fields." "My people are not your concern," Samuel said, rising from his chair. "I am asking you what you feel, here, now. Just you and me." She turned to face him, and in her eyes he saw a battle being waged. Fear against hope, pain against possibility, old wounds against new beginnings. "I feel," she whispered, "like I have been wandering in a desert, and you are the water." Samuel closed the distance between them. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he wrapped his arms around her. She was small against his broad chest, and she trembled as she finally let herself lean into him. "Then drink," he said. "Stay. Let me love you." The weeks that followed were the hardest of Samuel's life. True to their word, the townspeople turned against him. His credit was cut off. Old friends crossed the street to avoid him. Someone shot at the ranch one night, shattering a window. Samuel boarded it up and kept watch through the darkness, rifle in hand. But there were also moments of profound beauty. Ayita blooming like a flower in the garden she planted behind the house, the sound of her singing Apache songs as she worked, the way she would look at him across the dinner table, her eyes full of a love that asked for nothing but his presence. One afternoon, Samuel took Ayita into town. He knew the risk, but she needed fabric for new clothes, and he refused to hide her away like a secret. The streets went quiet as they walked. Women pulled their children close. Men glared. But Samuel held Ayita's hand firmly in his own, and he walked with his head high. In the general store, Jim Peters refused to serve them. Samuel simply nodded and led Ayita out. They would order what they needed from another town. But as they stepped onto the wooden sidewalk, a young woman approached them. She was perhaps 18, with red hair and a face full of freckles. Samuel recognized her as Mary Collins, the schoolteacher's daughter. "Mr. Redford," she said quietly, glancing around nervously, "I just want to say that I think what you are doing is brave. Not everyone in this town agrees with the others. Some of us believe in love, wherever it grows." Samuel tipped his hat to her. "Thank you, Miss Collins. That means more than you know." As they rode home, Ayita was quiet. Finally, she spoke. "There are good hearts among your people. There are good hearts everywhere," Samuel said. "Sometimes they just need to see courage before they find their own. Do you want the story to end peacefully, or with one final test of their love?" The final test came on a cold November night. Samuel woke to the smell of fire and the sound of shouting. He grabbed his rifle and ran outside to see flames consuming the barn. Through the orange glow he saw them, a group of hooded men on horseback circling the property. "Send out the Apache witch," one of them shouted. "This is your last warning, Redford." Ayita appeared beside him, her face set with determination. "Let me go to them. I will not let you die for me." "No one is dying tonight," Samuel said. He raised his rifle and fired into the air. "This is my land, my home. You want to burn it down? Then you will have to kill me first." For a moment, everything was still. The fire crackled, the horses stamped nervously. Then, from behind the hooded men, came the sound of more horses. Samuel squinted through the darkness and saw riders approaching from the direction of town. At their head was Mary Collins, and behind her were a dozen others. Men and women Samuel barely knew, people who had watched the persecution from a distance, but had finally found their courage. "Enough!" Mary shouted. "This ends tonight." The hooded men, faced with overwhelming numbers, turned and fled into the darkness. The townspeople formed a chain and worked through the night to save what they could of the barn. By morning, the fire was out, and Samuel stood in the ashes with Ayita's hand in his. One of the men, a farmer named Jacob Green, approached them with his hat in his hands. "Mr. Redford," he said, "I am ashamed it took us this long. What you have shown us, your love, your courage, it made us see our own cowardice. We will help you rebuild. If you will have us." Samuel looked at Ayita. She nodded slowly, a small smile crossing her lips. "We will have you," Samuel said. The wedding took place in the spring, when the wildflowers were blooming across the hills, and the creek ran full with snow melt from the mountains. It was a small ceremony, but the people who came did so with genuine hearts. Mary Collins played the piano. Jacob Green served as a witness, and when Samuel placed the ring on Ayita's finger, a ring he had bought from a trader 200 miles away because no local jeweler would serve him, he felt like he was truly alive for the first time since he could remember. That night, lying beside his new wife in the home they had defended together, Samuel whispered to her in the darkness. "I am old," he said. "I cannot give you many years." Ayita turned to him and placed her hand over his heart. "You have given me something more valuable than years," she said. "You have given me a home, a heart to belong to, a love that chose me when the world did not." Samuel pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the miracle of her warmth against him. Outside, the night was quiet. The stars wheeled overhead like they had for millennia, indifferent to the struggles of the people below. But on the Redford ranch, two souls who had found each other against all odds slept peacefully, their hearts beating as one, and the voices that had spoken against them faded into silence, replaced by something far more powerful and enduring, the voice of love, which knows no boundaries of age or race or the small cruelties of fearful men. Samuel had made his choice, and he would make it again every day for whatever time he had left.